and we're focusing on the political races that will impact you and your family, from mayor to city council and much more. Plus, there is a social media trend called bone smashing. What is that? Where some are using hard objects such as hammers to bludgeon their faces to make it more contour. It's the poor man's plastic surgery, believe it or not.
The Isaiah Factor Uncensored starts right now.
Welcome and thank you for joining us here on The Factor Uncensored. Election Night 2023 is here. Tonight we have special election night coverage. We begin with the biggest one in Houston, the race for mayor. And just minutes ago we learned the race is going to be a runoff. Fox 26's Sherman DeSalle and Tom Ziska are standing by with more information. And we begin with Tom, who is at the watch party for John Whitmire. Tom?
What, just a little bit ago, an encouraged and fiery sounding John Whitmire came and addressed this crowd at the Marriott Marquis downtown. Still here talking to folks here. We could see that, where he is certainly encouraged by the nearly 8-point lead in the early returns here for Houston mayor, where he spoke about the negative campaigning that does not work, as he took slings and arrows in the final weeks of this campaign, and addressing expectations of a city hall that are not being met, his words, as he railed on his campaign issues of public safety, fire and police support, infrastructure, city services. Almost certainly there's going to be a runoff with his very likely candidate, a very likely opponent, Sheila Jackson Lee. Sherman DeSalle is at that campaign tonight. Sherman.
And of course, we want to thank Tom Ziska for that. Now we move over to Sheila Jackson Lee's campaign, where Sherman DeSalle is live for us tonight. Sherman, what do you have?
Yeah, good evening, Isaiah. I got a lot. A lot of people have been really celebratory tonight. They knew that this race was going to be too close to call. They're just thankful that they got a few more weeks in this thing. A lot of her supporters showed up tonight, excited, just as excited as she was. I got a one-on-one with her earlier. I asked her, what would it mean to be the first black female mayor of Houston? She says, she's pointed out she's already trailblazed so many trails as a congresswoman, and she said that she is excited to be a part of history in this global city. We're back to you, Isaiah.
All right, we're getting ready. This is live TV. Come on, have your seat, guys. This is the way it works on The Factor Uncensored. We roll with the punches. Thank you, Sherman. And of course, we continue the discussion with our panelists now, University of Houston downtown professors, Dr. Dietrich von Biedenfeld, Dr. David Branham, attorney Eric Dick, and political analyst Angela Bott. So, Angela, when you take a look at this race for mayor, two Democrats running there, your thoughts on Whitmire leading the race now, and it will likely be a runoff?
Well, look, I think this is, I love schadenfreude. It's like my favorite thing, taking pleasure in the misery of others. Sheila Jackson Lee is a truly detestable human. She's known as the most abusive boss in Congress. She is a terrible human being, and for her to lose this spectacularly tonight, I am just really excited about this.
Well, she hasn't lost. She's in a runoff.
She's in a runoff,
yeah.
and she's at, you know, she's about at 38%. This is her ceiling. I don't see Sheila getting higher than 38%. People do not like this woman, and it is going to be such a wonderful thing to see over the next 6 weeks, to watch her just completely implode and to have to tuck her tail and run on back to Washington, D.C.
Tell me how you really feel, Angela. Jeez. My God in heaven.
I mean, she's ruined her district.
All right.
And now
Dr.
she
David
wants to
Branham,
ruin
let's hear from you.
Well, trying to keep personalities out of this.
Please.
This is really a bad night for Sheila Jackson Lee. She needed to be very close to even have a chance now. I don't see any possibility of her picking up votes from the other candidates in any where she can actually go over the top of Whitmire in a runoff. So I think it's a bad night. I do agree with Angela. It's a bad night for her. So things have happened in the past. I mean, I'm old enough to remember Frank Briscoe losing to Jim McConnell after being ahead by 10 points. But the tea leaves here don't show that. I don't see a scenario where she beats Whitmire in the runoff.
All right, Eric Dick, attorney, your thoughts on this?
So the people that Sheila has to basically pick from are those that voted for Jack Christie, so it'd be someone like Angela, who's not going to vote for Sheila, or those that voted for Gilbert Garcia, who's like a centrist, independent Republican, and I imagine she could get a sprinkle of those, but I think they're also more inclined to vote for Whitmire. Or maybe a sprinkle of those that voted for Kaplan. So she's going to have a difficult time expanding her base. Her problem is she's just been divisive, like politically divisive in the past, and she's got her district that voted for her, she's got her core that voted for her, but this is a nonpartisan race. I've run them before, and Republicans happily vote for Democrats, shockingly, and Democrats will happily vote for Republicans. It just has to be done a certain way. But since she's been so divisive, the chances of her picking up any of those votes are going to be really hard.
Dr. Dietrich von Biedenfeld, your thoughts on the results tonight?
It's not unexpected, especially when we follow the money. His fundraising was vastly superior to hers, his expenditures, and then still cash on hand, 5-to-1 in some estimates, and so his money was better. Another aspect, though, is we saw this with Beto O'Rourke. Texas Democrats have a very sort of naive sense of hope every time that we're going to go purple, and I think that looking towards the next election, a lot of these folks are saying Biden's going to beat Trump in the prospective match-off, and so they don't need a friend in D.C., they need a friend in Austin, and his 40 years in Austin are going to potentially allow him to better navigate this Austin-Houston battle that has been going on recently. So I think those two things are major aspects, as well as what the prior panelists have said. Sheila's been a divisive force in a very small district, and he's been statewide and built a 40-year reputation despite Prop 13, where we said we don't want any more old people. His 40 years is coming into an advantage.
And really quick, Dr. Branham, for those who are wondering, if she is running for mayor, does she have to give up her seat for Congress?
No, she'll remain in Congress, and I think she'll stay there for as long as she wants to be there.
Thank you, guys. Still ahead here on The Factor, we have more election coverage coming your way. And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. We continue our live election coverage tonight. The polls have been closed for hours now, with some sites still processing votes at this very hour. Fox 26's Matthew Seedorf is standing by live for an update. What is it like out there, Matthew?
Well, Isaiah, they are still coming in. I know you have your coffee ready because it's going to be a late night as they count these ballots. Polls closed more than 3.5 hours ago. They're still coming in right now. And only about a third of the polling locations have delivered their ballots to the ones that are expected here tonight. Now, more than 210,000 people voted in person today in Harris County, about 430,000 for the entire election. So it's going to be a long night as they are counting these, but I am happy to report no major issues across Harris County with the voting. There were some hiccups with some scanners this morning, but overall everyone was able to get those votes in. Nothing like what happened in 2022. Isaiah, I'll go ahead and send it back to you.
All right, thank you a lot, Matthew. Let's get back to our discussion. We continue talking with our panelists this evening about the election 2023. Anything unusual that you've heard of today? Obviously, look at Angela, can't wait. She gonna say something negative.
I'm not gonna say
Go ahead, Angela. What did you hear?
Let's see. Early in the morning, we got reports that shockingly, well, surprise, surprise, the machines went down in Republican areas yet again. And this is the cherry on the sundae of the audit that the Texas Secretary of State just concluded that said that there were just enormous problems with the 2022 election in Harris County, in Republican areas, running out of paper, machines going down on Election Day. I mean, SSDD.
All right, Dr. Branham, your assessment of today and how it was handled.
Well, I think it's so far today, the news is better than 2022. Yeah. 2022 was awful, in all honesty. There were so many gaffes going on. So I heard today that things were going wrong in certain places, but it wasn't nearly as bad as it was in 2022.
And Eric, are you disappointed at the turnout so far?
I'm not. I mean, you kind of expect to be kind of a lower turnout. When you have certain parties pushing, you don't really have a big Republican person at the top, so you don't have a lot of Republicans turning out. So you're going to have a lower turnout, at least demographically. I'm not surprised by the lower turnout.
And in the last 30 seconds, Dr. Van Biedenfeld, do you see the late trickle-in votes, will that change anything in your opinion?
I don't think so. I think the trend's sticking with it, and I, of course, waited to vote and ended up in line. They had to turn the machines off and turn it back on. West Pearland Library, though, handled it like champs. You do wonder why Chick-fil-A doesn't run these things, because the same door to go in was the same door to go out. It's like, logistically, think again. But I didn't see a lot of problems, and people waited in line. So I think most people got to cast their votes early enough where it's going to count.
All right, bootleg-ass machines. Let's just pray for the best here. Don't go anywhere. We continue our live election coverage. And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. On election night, we continue to track the biggest races in Houston. Fox 26's Houston reporter Natalie He is standing by with an update on the controllers. Natalie, I introduce you like I've never met you before. Give us the latest, Natalie.
Isaiah, you know better than that. That's right, though. Chris Hollins running for city comptroller. He's having a watch party at Chapman and Kirby in East Downtown. He addressed the crowd about an hour ago and thanked everyone for their support. And he gave essentially what was a victory speech, or as close to a victory speech as you could possibly get. But he says it's still too early to tell. But those early voting numbers and some of the election day results that came in, it's about 47% of the vote. He's leading ahead of his opponents, Dave Morton, Orlando Sanchez, and Shannon Noble. So if that trajectory continues, he could possibly snag the win tonight. Or the question is, does he have to wait for an election runoff in December next month? So right now, it's looking good for him, but he still insists that it's still too early to tell. Now, Hollins is a former Harris County elections chief. He rose to popularity during the COVID-19 pandemic for expanding voting access. He also formally ran for the Houston mayoral race. He ended up dropping that bid to run for city controller. So if he ends up snagging that win tonight, it looks like it may have been a good move for him. Isaiah, we're live at Chapman and Kirby. Natalie He, Fox 26 News.
All right, thanks a lot, Natalie. My friend, I do know you. Our guests are back to continue this discussion. Is Orlando Sanchez's problem is he's been running so long? Do people see him as a career politician, Dr. Branham?
Oh, absolutely. He is a career politician, and his name is on the ballot all the time. So people do see that. That's not necessarily a bad thing, though. There are times when it's good to have the name recognition, and if you have the reputation, and I think he has it, that he does a good job when he's in office. I mean, he's been able to avoid every scandal when all those around him have been in it. So I think he's a very good candidate.
It's like, let me step over this body and get to where I'm going.
He's
Go
got
ahead,
it.
Angela.
I love Orlando. I know him personally. He's a great guy. And I think what Orlando would bring to the table over Chris Hollins is some fiscal sanity. Chris Hollins is going to be in the mold of a Sheila Jackson Lee, Alina Hidalgo, and Adrian Garcia, Rodney Ellis. And I mean, if you love that, I guess vote for Chris Hollins. But if you want someone who's fiscally conservative and is going to actually look at what's going on in the city of Houston, Orlando's the better choice.
And Eric and Dr. Van Biedenfeld, let's talk about council race in District G, Tony Busby. You know, many people thought that would be a shoo-in for him against the incumbent, but we're shocked. He's behind now, 41% to 51%. That number may have changed. So your thoughts on that?
I think Eric's going to have more to say about this. I was surprised, at least in the sense that Republicans didn't come out more after his very zealous advocacy on behalf of the Attorney General. So you would think that people would come out in droves, but Eric probably has a different opinion.
He's a damn rock star.
Yeah, he is.
So Tony's problem, and I love Tony. Tony's a great person. But Tony's problem is he picked a race that I don't know that he was the best for. This is a Republican area, and Tony, even though he is a Republican and he says he's not, he voted in the Democrat Party in the primary, and it caused him some heartburn. When you're running as a Republican in a Republican area, you need to vote in the Republican primary. You need to have all the Republican credentials. He voted the Democrat primary, and it caused him a lot of problems.
10 seconds, Dr. Branham.
If you're on a high note like he was after the Paxson trial, you don't put your political life in the hand of a few thousand voters. You go for a bigger constituency.
He's a badass mofo, and if he doesn't make it through, there will be a race for Tony Busby. It just has to be the right race. He is a rock star. He's great.
All right. And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. Another big development tonight. A Republican in Texas has been charged with possessing child porn hours before Election Day. We're talking about Brad Benson, a candidate for Granbury City Council. The Republican Party has since withdrawn its support for him, and since these charges have come out, he's left alone. We're also watching the biggest win so far across the country. More than 30 years after being wrongfully imprisoned, Yusuf Salaam has won a seat on New York City Council. He was part of the Central Park Five, now known as the Exonerated Five. Another first tonight. Philadelphia's newly elected mayor is Cheryl Parker, a black woman. Our guests are back here on The Factor Uncensored to talk about this. First of all, your thoughts on the Republican in Granbury being arrested, and now the Republican Party has withdrawn their support from him.
Well, obviously, they should withdraw their support. I urge everyone to watch Sound of Freedom, that is now streaming on Prime Video. This issue of child pornography and child sex trafficking is far more prevalent than people want to understand. It happens in the Republican Party and the Democrat Party. These people are perverts, and he's not going to have a good time in jail.
All right. Yusuf Salaam, your thoughts on that, Dr. Brenham?
Well, it's a great comeback story for social justice. When somebody has to spend time in jail when they're innocent, that's obviously something that this country can't be proud of. Now we can get a little prouder with his election to New York City Council.
And Eric Dick, you're an attorney who represents, people. Your thoughts on a comeback story like this, a turnaround story?
Well, I think it's good. I think everyone can support a comeback story. He went from being at the bottom. I was a pizza driver, gone from the bottom to being a successful attorney. And nothing's wrong with that. Everything's right with that. That's the American dream.
And Dr. Von Bielefeld, your thoughts on Mayor Cheryl Parker now, the first black woman to be mayor in Philadelphia. Surprise there?
No, it's not surprising, but this is part of the machine. And I will say I've met with David O., her opponent. He was a very moderate person, a decorated military veteran. The challenge is getting out of that partisanship. And so her Democratic machine was very powerful, but as a black woman, she's going to represent a huge part of that constituency and a lot of the interests. So it's monumental for a major city to have this accomplishment. So that's something to be celebrated, while also recognizing that there were two diverse candidates in this race that voters had to choose from.
And for those who don't know who the other is, explain and describe that other candidate.
Right, so he's an Asian American. He's an Army veteran. He was once stabbed in front of his house. He's a major advocate for police improvements. The universities in the area cut their police. He fought against it, and they eventually brought their police back. And just a very, very strong story of diversity and immigration, sort of the comeback story of the Exonerated Five. He came from nothing, and he built himself up. He's got a family. He still lives in the hood. And so he's just very proud of that heritage.
And Dr. Bradham, your overall assessment of election night 2023 in the last 30 seconds we have.
Well, I'm very proud of the turnout that we've had. We've had worse turnout in other elections. So there's a broad interest in this. We had a lot of really good candidates. People had a choice. And so I'm very proud of the city of Houston and the state of Texas for putting together a good election tonight.
And I'm proud of you guys for hanging out with us tonight.